Owen Nichols had his finger on the trigger. The rifle's sights centered on the massive figure rummaging through his vegetable garden. When the moonlight caught her face, and he saw the exhaustion there, the desperate way her shoulders sagged even as her hands moved mechanically to dig up his carrots. He lowered the weapon slowly, his breath fogging in the cold autumn air, and called out into the darkness with words that surprised even himself. "Are you hungry?" The orc woman froze, her green skin almost gray in the pale light, and for a moment Owen thought she might bolt into the forest that bordered his property. Instead, she turned to face him fully, and he saw the way her hands trembled, the dirt under her fingernails, the hollow look in her amber eyes. She was young, he realized, probably no more than 20, and thin in a way that spoke of weeks without proper food. Her tusks were small, barely protruding past her lower lip, and one of her pointed ears was torn at the tip. She wore what remained of leather armor, tattered and stained, and her black hair hung in matted tangles past her shoulders. "I will leave," she said, her voice rough but clear. "I meant no harm to you." Owen kept the rifle lowered but did not set it aside. He had been a soldier once, 5 years ago, before a leg wound sent him home to take over his father's farm after the old man passed. He had killed orcs in battle, watched friends die at their hands, and spent 3 years learning to walk without a limp. Every rational part of his mind told him to let her go, or better yet, to fire a warning shot and chase her off his land. Instead, he found himself looking at the pathetic pile of vegetables she had been gathering and the way she swayed slightly on her feet. "When did you last eat?" he asked. She hesitated, pride and desperation warring visibly across her features. 4 days ago. Maybe 5. Owen cursed under his breath. He was 32 years old, had survived a war, and now lived alone on 40 acres of farmland with only his dog for company. He had no business bringing an orc into his home. The nearest neighbor was 3 miles away, but news traveled fast in rural communities like this one. If anyone found out he had harbored an orc, even for a single night, he would be branded a traitor at best. "My name is Owen," he said, making a decision that would change everything. "Come inside. I will feed you and then you go. Understood?" "Why?" she asked, suspicion mixing with hope in her expression. "Because I have food and you are starving," he said simply. "And because shooting a half-dead woman who was stealing carrots seems like a coward's way, even if she is an orc." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "My name is Asha Morvac. I accept your offer." Owen led her to the farmhouse, a sturdy 2-story structure his grandfather had built from local timber. His dog, a gray hound named Scout, barked once from the porch before Owen silenced him with a gesture. Asha followed at a distance, moving with the careful quiet of someone who had learned to expect violence. Owen opened the door and gestured her inside, still holding his rifle in one hand. The interior was simple, but well maintained. A stone fireplace dominated one wall of the main room, with a cooking area to one side and a rough wooden table with 4 chairs in the center. Stairs led up to the sleeping loft, and a door in the back wall opened to a small storage room. Owen lit an oil lamp and hung it from a ceiling hook, casting warm light across the space. "Sit," he said, pointing to the table. "I will make you something." Asha sat gingerly, as if the chair might collapse beneath her, and watched him move around the kitchen. Owen stoked the fire and hung a pot of water to heat, then cut thick slices of bread and cheese. He had stew left over from his own dinner, still warm in a covered pot, and he ladled a generous portion into a bowl. When he set the food in front of her, she stared at it for a moment before looking up at him. "This is more than one meal," she said quietly. "Then eat slowly so you do not make yourself sick. Owen replied. He propped his rifle against the wall within reach, but far enough away to show he was not actively threatening her, then sat down across the table with his own mug of tea. Asha ate like someone who had forgotten what it felt like to be full. She forced herself to go slowly, he could see that, but her hands shook as she brought the spoon to her mouth, and her eyes kept darting to the door as if expecting soldiers to burst through at any moment. Owen said nothing, just sipped his tea and watched the fire crackle in the hearth. Scout had followed them inside and now lay near the fireplace, his eyes fixed on Asha with alert curiosity. When she had finished the stew and half the bread, Asha sat back and took a shaky breath. "Thank you," she said. "I have not tasted cooked food in a long time. What happened to you?" Owen asked. "Where is your clan?" Her expression shuddered immediately, pain flickering across her features before she forced it away. "Dead or scattered. Human soldiers raided our settlement 6 weeks ago. I have been moving ever since, trying to reach the northern territories where the clans still hold ground." "The northern territories are 200 miles from here," Owen said. "You will never make it in your condition." "I know," Asha said simply, "but I have nowhere else to go. Humans kill orcs on sight in these lands, and the few clans nearby want nothing to do with refugees. They say we bring trouble." Owen felt an uncomfortable twist in his chest. He had participated in raids like the one she described, back when he wore a uniform and followed orders. The army called them defensive strikes, necessary actions to protect human settlements from orc aggression. But he remembered the burning homes, the bodies left behind, the way his commanding officer had forbidden them from taking prisoners. He had told himself it was war, that the orcs would have done the same to them. Looking at Asha now, hollow-eyed and exhausted, those justifications felt thin. "You can stay tonight," he heard himself say. "In the barn. There is hay and blankets, and it is warmer than the forest. Tomorrow you can take some supplies and continue north." Asha stared at him as if he had offered her a kingdom. "You would do this." "I already am," Owen said gruffly. "But if anyone finds out you were here, it will mean trouble for both of us. So you stay out of sight, you leave before dawn, and we forget this ever happened." "I understand," Asha said. "And I will not forget your kindness, Owen Nichols." He showed her to the barn, gave her a thick wool blanket and pointed out the water pump, then returned to the house. Scout followed him inside, and Owen locked the door before climbing the stairs to his loft bedroom. He lay awake for a long time, listening to the wind rattle the windows and wondering what he had just done. When he finally slept, his dreams were troubled, filled with memories of war and the weight of choices that could not be taken back. He woke before dawn out of habit, dressed in work clothes, and went downstairs to find Asha already gone. The blanket was neatly folded on his porch with a small carved wooden figure on top, a bird in flight that she must have made with a knife and a piece of scrap wood. Owen picked it up, turning it over in his hands, and felt something shift in his chest. The next 3 weeks passed in the normal rhythm of farm work. Owen harvested the last of his crops, repaired fences, and split firewood for the coming winter. He went into town twice for supplies, enduring the usual small talk with the shopkeeper and the suspicious looks from the local militia men who drank in the tavern. The war had been over for 5 years, but tensions remained high, and rumors of orc sightings still sent patrols racing into the forest. On the 4th week, Owen was mending a section of his northern fence line when he found Asha collapsed in the tree line, barely conscious. At first, he thought she was dead. She lay face down in the fallen leaves, her breathing so shallow he had to kneel beside her to confirm she was alive. Her skin burned with fever, and when he carefully rolled her over, he saw the infected wound on her side, half hidden beneath her torn leather armor. It looked like a blade cut, deep and festering, and he knew immediately that she would die without treatment. Owen looked around quickly, confirming he was alone, then made his second impossible decision in a month. He lifted Asha as gently as he could, biting back a curse when she groaned in pain, and carried her back to the farmhouse. She was heavier than she looked, all muscle despite her thinness, and by the time he got her inside, his bad leg was screaming in protest. He laid her on his own bed in the loft, since it was the only proper bed in the house, and went to work. Owen had learned field medicine in the army, enough to keep men alive until a real doctor could reach them, and he fell back on that training now. He cut away the ruined armor and the shirt beneath, trying not to think about the fact that he was undressing an unconscious orc woman in his bed. The wound was worse than he had feared, red and swollen with infection, and he knew she needed more than basic herbs and clean bandages. The problem was that the nearest doctor was in town, and there was no way to bring Dr. Hartley here without explaining why. Owen stood at the bedside, looking down at Asha's fever-flushed face, and weighed his options. He could do nothing and let her die, which felt like murder after saving her once. He could try to treat the infection himself with limited supplies and hope for the best. Or he could risk everything and bring the doctor here. In the end, he chose a middle path that was probably just as dangerous. He rode into town and bought every medical supply he could think of, claiming he had cut himself badly while working and wanted to be prepared. The shopkeeper gave him an odd look but took his money, and Owen rode back with saddlebags full of antiseptic tinctures, clean cloth for bandages, needle and thread for stitches, and a bottle of whiskey. Asha was still unconscious when he returned. Owen cleaned the wound as thoroughly as he dared, poured antiseptic directly into it, despite knowing how much it would hurt if she were awake, and stitched the worst parts closed with hands that shook slightly. He had done this before for fellow soldiers, but the stakes felt different now, more personal. When he finished, he bandaged her tightly and then sat back, looking at his work and hoping it would be enough. She slept through that day and into the night. Owen moved between the loft and the main floor, checking on her every few hours, forcing water between her lips when he could. Her fever remained high, and she muttered in her sleep, words in the orcish language that he did not understand, but that sounded like names, like pleas. He wiped her face with cool water and changed the bandages when they needed it, and tried not to think about what he would do if she died anyway. On the third day, the fever broke. Owen was downstairs making breakfast when he heard movement above. He took the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the protest from his bad leg, and found Asha awake, staring at the ceiling with confused eyes. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "My house," Owen said, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. "I found you in the forest. You had an infected wound." Asha's hand moved to her side, feeling the bandages beneath the clean shirt he had dressed her in after treating the wound. "You did this." "I am no doctor, but I know enough," Owen said. "You were dying. Why did you save me?" She asked, and there was something raw in her voice, something vulnerable. "I was supposed to be gone. You gave me supplies and a chance to leave. Why bring me back?" Owen met her amber eyes and found he did not have a good answer. "Because letting you die in the forest seemed wrong," he said finally, "and because I am apparently terrible at making sensible decisions lately." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "I noticed. You need to rest more," Owen said. "The infection is gone, but you lost a lot of blood and you are still weak. A few more days, at least, before you should try to travel." "A few more days here means more danger for you," Asha pointed out. "Then we will be careful," Owen said. "You stay in the loft away from the windows. If anyone comes, you hide. Can you do that?" She nodded slowly. "I can. But Owen, why are you doing this? I am an orc. Your people and mine have been at war for generations. You have every reason to hate me." Owen stood and moved to the window, looking out at his farm, the fields he had planted and tended, the life he had built from the ashes of his military service. "I was a soldier," he said quietly. "I fought orcs, killed them, watched them kill my friends. I came home hating everything about your people. But you know what I learned, living here alone for the past 4 years? Hate is exhausting. It does not grow crops or fix fences or make life better. And when I found you that first night stealing my vegetables because you were starving, I realized something." "What?" Asha asked. He turned to face her. "That maybe the people who told me all orcs were monsters were wrong, or at least not entirely right. You are just trying to survive, same as me. And if I can help with that without it destroying everything I have built here, then maybe that is a small step toward something better than endless war." Asha was quiet for a long moment. "You are a strange human, Owen Nichols." "So I have been told," Owen said. "Now, can you eat something, or should I just bring you water for now? I think I could manage soup," she said. "If it is not too much trouble." "No trouble at all," Owen replied and headed back downstairs to start cooking. The days that followed settled into an unexpected routine. Asha remained in the loft, healing slowly but steadily. Owen brought her meals 3 times a day and sat with her while she ate, and they talked. At first, the conversations were practical, focused on her recovery and her plans to continue north. But gradually, they expanded into other territory. Asha told him about her clan, a small community that had lived in the hills to the east, trying to maintain peace with the human settlements nearby. She spoke of her mother, a skilled leather worker, and her father, a hunter who had taught her to track and move silently through the forest. She had 2 younger brothers who had been away when the soldiers came, and she did not know if they had survived. Her voice broke when she talked about the raid, about coming back from gathering herbs to find the village burning and bodies everywhere. Owen found himself sharing things he had told no one else. He talked about the war, about the friends he had lost, about the leg wound that still ached when the weather turned cold. He spoke of his father, a stern but fair man who had expected Owen to take over the farm, but died before they could reconcile after a bitter argument about Owen joining the military. He admitted that coming back to the farm had felt like failure at first, like giving up on the life he thought he wanted, but that he had grown to love the quiet simplicity of it. "You regret it?" Asha asked one evening as rain drummed against the roof and Owen sat in a chair he had moved up to the loft. "Leaving the army, I mean." "No," Owen said after thinking about it. "I regret some of what I did while I was there, things I cannot change, but leaving? No, that was the right choice." "What about you? Do you regret staying near human lands instead of fleeing further north after the raid?" "Sometimes," Asha admitted. "I thought if I moved carefully, stayed hidden, I could make it to safety without starving. But I underestimated how little food there is in the forest this time of year, and how much ground I would need to cover. I should have stolen a horse or taken more risks earlier." "You would not have made it this far if you had taken more risks," Owen said. "Someone would have seen you and raised the alarm. At least moving slowly kept you alive long enough to steal my carrots." She laughed at that, a real laugh that transformed her face. "Your carrots were very good." "I am an excellent farmer," Owen said with mock pride. "My carrots are locally famous." "Are they?" Asha asked, eyes sparkling. "Well, no," Owen admitted, "but they should be." It was during these quiet conversations that Owen began to notice things he probably should not have been noticing. The way Asha's eyes reflected the lamplight like a cat's, golden and warm. The strength in her hands, calloused from work but graceful when she gestured. The sound of her laugh, rare but genuine. The fierce intelligence in her questions and the careful way she listened when he spoke. He told himself it meant nothing, that he was just lonely and she was the first person he had really talked to in months. But the rationalizations felt hollow even as he made them. Asha seemed to be having similar thoughts. Owen caught her watching him sometimes when she thought he was not paying attention, her expression thoughtful and uncertain. Once, when he was changing her bandages, her hand had brushed his wrist and lingered there for a moment before she pulled away, looking flustered. Neither of them mentioned it, but the air between them felt charged after that, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. By the end of the second week, Asha was strong enough to move around the loft on her own. She insisted on helping with small tasks, mending Owen's shirts with neat stitches and organizing the clutter that had accumulated in the corners. Owen protested at first, but she pointed out that she would go mad from boredom if she had to lie in bed one more day, and he relented. On the 16th day, everything changed. Owen was outside splitting firewood when he heard horses approaching. He looked up to see 4 men riding up the path to his house, and his stomach sank when he recognized them. Tom Driscoll, the town's self-appointed militia captain, along with 3 of his regular patrol. Tom was a thick-shouldered man of about 40 with a permanent scowl and a deep hatred of orcs that bordered on obsession. His wife had been killed in an orc raid 15 years ago, and he had never recovered from it. Owen set down his axe and walked to meet them, his mind racing. Had someone seen Asha? Had he been careless? He kept his expression neutral and raised a hand in greeting. "Tom," he said. "What brings you out this way?" Tom reined his horse to a stop and looked down at Owen with narrow eyes. "We have been tracking an orc through these woods for the past few days. Lost the trail near your property line. You seen anything unusual?" "No," Owen said, keeping his voice steady. "But I have been working close to the house mostly. What makes you think the orc came this way?" "Tracks," Tom said. "Led northeast from town, straight toward your farm. Figure the creature was looking for food or supplies." "Well, nothing is missing from my stores," Owen said. "And I have not seen any signs of orcs. Could be the tracks went around my property." Tom studied him for a long moment, and Owen forced himself to meet the man's gaze without flinching. Finally, Tom nodded. "Could be. You mind if we take a look around, just to be sure?" Every instinct Owen had screamed at him to refuse, but he knew that would only make Tom more suspicious. "Go ahead," he said, "though I would appreciate it if you did not trample what is left of my garden." Tom and his men dismounted and spread out, checking the barn, the outbuildings, and the perimeter of the house. Owen followed at a distance, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had told Asha that if anyone came, she should hide in the space between the loft floor and the roof beams, a cramped crawl space that was barely big enough for a person. He had to trust that she had heard the horses and moved quickly. "Nice place you have here, Nichols," Tom said, walking back toward him after checking the barn. "Quiet, lonely." "I like it that way," Owen said. "I bet you do," Tom said. "Must get boring, though, no one to talk to except that dog." "Scout is excellent company," Owen said. "Better than most people, honestly." Tom did not smile. "You know, some folks in town think it is strange, you living out here all alone. They wonder what you do with your time." "I farm," Owen said flatly. "It is what farmers do." "Sure," Tom said, "but you were a soldier once." "A good one, from what I heard. Seems odd you would just give that up to plant vegetables." Owen felt his temper stir but kept it leashed. "I gave it up because a sword went through my leg and the army did not need a limping infantryman. Not much of a mystery there." Tom's eyes flicked to Owen's left leg, and something like satisfaction crossed his face. "Right. Well, we will be on our way then. But if you do see any signs of orcs, you let us know immediately. There is a bounty now, 50 silver pieces for any orc killed on sight. Some folks are getting rich off it." "I will keep that in mind," Owen said through gritted teeth. Tom mounted his horse and gathered his men. They rode off down the path, and Owen forced himself to wait until they were out of sight before moving. Then he strode to the house, took the stairs 3 at a time despite his leg, and called out softly, "They are gone." There was a moment of silence and then the sound of movement from above. A panel in the ceiling shifted aside, and Asha's face appeared, pale but composed. "I heard everything," she said quietly. Owen helped her down from the crawlspace, noting the way she winced when she moved too quickly. "Are you all right?" "Fine," she said. "Just cramped." "Owen, this is too dangerous. Tom suspects something, even if he did not find proof. I need to leave before I get you killed." "You are not strong enough yet," Owen argued. "Another few days, at least." "I do not have a few more days," Asha said, and there was fear in her voice now, real fear. "If Tom comes back with more men, or if he decides to search the house more thoroughly, I am dead and you are a traitor. I will not let that happen." Owen wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to help her gather supplies and send her on her way tonight. But the thought of her leaving made something in his chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with old war wounds. "What if there was another option?" he said slowly. Asha looked at him warily. "What do you mean?" "What if you stayed, but not in hiding?" Owen said, the idea forming even as he spoke. "What if you stayed as my hired hand?" "Owen, I am an orc," Asha said, as if he might have somehow forgotten. "No one will believe you hired me." "They will if I sell it right," Owen said, his mind racing now. "I tell them I found you injured in the forest and decided to spare you on the condition that you work off the debt. It happens sometimes, prisoners of war being put to work instead of executed. It is not common, but it is not unheard of either." "It is insane," Asha said. "The moment someone sees me, they will want me dead." "Maybe," Owen admitted, "but maybe not. If I vouch for you, if I make it clear you are under my protection and working to earn your keep, some people might accept it. And it would be safer than you trying to travel 200 miles through hostile territory in your condition." "Why?" Asha asked, and her voice was raw again. "Why would you risk your life, your home, your entire future for me? We barely know each other." Owen looked at her, really looked at her, and knew he had passed some invisible point of no return. "Because in the past few weeks, you have become more than just some orc I found in my garden," he said quietly. "You have become my friend. And I do not have so many of those that I can afford to send you away to die." Asha's eyes shimmered and she blinked rapidly. "You are either the bravest human I have ever met or the most foolish." "Probably both," Owen said. "So what do you say? Will you stay?" She was quiet for a long moment, and Owen could see the conflict playing out across her face. Finally, she nodded. "I will stay. But if this gets you killed, I will never forgive you." "Deal," Owen said, and felt something settle in his chest, a rightness he had not experienced in a long time. The next morning, Owen rode into town with Asha seated behind him on the horse. He had given her clean clothes, a simple work shirt and trousers that had belonged to his father, and tied her hair back in a practical braid. She looked nervous but determined, her shoulders squared and her chin up. Owen felt his own stomach churning with anxiety but kept his expression calm. They went straight to the militia office, a small building near the town square where Tom Driscoll held court. Owen dismounted and helped Asha down, very aware of the stares they were already attracting. He kept his hand on her arm, not restraining her but making it clear she was with him, and walked into the office. Tom looked up from his desk, and his eyes widened when he saw Asha. His hand went immediately to the pistol at his belt. What in hell is this, Nichols? This is Asha, Owen said calmly. I found her injured in my woods 2 days ago. She surrendered willingly, and I have decided to spare her life on the condition that she works for me to repay the debt. Tom stood slowly, his face reddening. You did what? You heard me, Owen said. It is my right as a landowner to take a prisoner of war into service rather than execute them. There is precedent for it. Precedent for taking captured soldiers, not for harboring dangerous creatures. Tom spat. He looked at Asha with pure hatred. That thing should be hanging from a tree right now. That thing has a name and has agreed to work peacefully, Owen said, his voice hardening. She is no threat to anyone. You cannot possibly be serious about this, Tom said. The town will never accept it. Then the town can take it up with me, Owen said. I am not asking for permission, Tom. I am informing you of my decision as a courtesy. Asha is under my protection, working on my land. If anyone has a problem with that, they can discuss it with me directly. Tom's jaw worked as if he were chewing rocks. You are making a mistake, Nichols. A big one. It would not be my first, Owen said. Are we done here? Tom looked like he wanted to say more, but he must have seen something in Owen's eyes that made him reconsider. Get out of my office, he said finally. But do not say I did not warn you when this blows up in your face. Owen led Asha back outside, where a small crowd had gathered. Faces he recognized from his occasional trips to town stared at them with expressions ranging from shock to anger to fearful curiosity. Owen met their eyes steadily, projecting a confidence he did not entirely feel. This is Asha, he announced to the crowd. She is working for me now. Anyone who has a problem with that can bring it to me directly, but I expect her to be treated with the same basic respect you would show any other person. Understood. There was muttering, but no one spoke up directly. Owen took that as the best he was likely to get and helped Asha back onto the horse. They rode out of town in silence, and Owen could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on his back. That went better than expected, Asha said quietly once they were on the road. Really? Owen asked. Because I am fairly sure we just made enemies of half the town. Only half, Asha said, and there was a hint of dark humor in her voice. I was expecting more. Despite everything, Owen found himself smiling. Fair point. Over the next few weeks, they settled into a new routine. Asha helped with the farm work, and Owen had to admit she was incredibly useful. She was stronger than him, capable of lifting things that would have taken him an hour to move in pieces, and she learned quickly. She took to the animals immediately, and within days, even Scout had accepted her, following her around the property like a second shadow. The real test came when neighbors started dropping by, some out of genuine curiosity and others clearly hoping to find an excuse to call for Asha's removal. Owen handled each visit the same way, introducing Asha as his hired hand and making it clear she was not going anywhere. Most people left shaking their heads but unwilling to push the issue. A few were openly hostile, and Owen had to escort them off his property with sharp words and a hard look. The worst visit came from Tom Driscoll himself, who showed up one evening with 2 of his men. Owen met them at the door, blocking the entrance. "What do you want, Tom?" "Just checking in," Tom said, his voice falsely pleasant. "Making sure your new employee is behaving herself." "She is fine," Owen said. "Was there anything else?" Tom's smile faded. "People are talking, Nichols. They are saying you are too friendly with that orc, that maybe you have lost your sense of what is right and wrong." "My sense of right and wrong is just fine," Owen said coldly. "And what I do on my own property is my business. Not when it affects the whole town," Tom shot back. "You are setting a dangerous precedent here. Next thing you know, every bleeding heart will want to spare orcs instead of doing what needs to be done." "And what is that?" Owen asked. Killing every orc you see, regardless of whether they are a threat. That sounds like the kind of thinking that keeps wars going forever. Tom's face darkened. My wife died because of your precious sense of mercy. Orcs do not deserve compassion. I am sorry about your wife, Owen said, and he meant it. But Asha was not there. She had nothing to do with what happened to you. Punishing her for crimes committed by other orcs is not justice, it is just revenge. You are a fool, Tom said. And when that creature turns on you, do not come crying to us for help. He turned and stalked away, his men following. Owen watched them go and felt Asha's presence behind him. He will never accept this, she said quietly. No, Owen agreed, but he does not have to. As long as we do not give him a reason to act, he can hate it all he wants. But Tom's visit left Owen uneasy. He started keeping his rifle closer, and he made sure to lock the doors at night. Asha noticed but said nothing, though he caught her watching the tree line sometimes with a wary expression. Despite the tension with the town, life on the farm was good. Better than good if Owen was honest with himself. Having Asha there made the work easier, but it was more than that. The house felt lived in for the first time in years, warm and full of life. They ate meals together, talking about everything and nothing. She taught him words in the orcish language, and he tried to teach her to play chess with a set his father had carved, though she was terrible at it and laughed at her own mistakes. One evening, as they sat by the fire after a long day of work, Asha asked him something that had clearly been on her mind. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she said. "Selling the farm and starting over somewhere where people do not know you?" Owen considered the question. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Especially on days when Tom shows up to make veiled threats. But this is my home, Asha. My grandfather built this house with his own hands. My father is buried on that hill behind the barn. Leaving would feel like giving up on everything they worked for." "Even if staying means constant conflict?" she asked. "Even then," Owen said. "Besides, running away would not solve anything. People like Tom exist everywhere. Better to stand my ground here where I have roots." Asha was quiet for a moment. "I admire that," she said finally. "In orc culture, we are taught to value strength and courage above all else. But your kind of courage is different. It is not about fighting or physical power. It is about standing firm for what you believe in, even when it would be easier to compromise." "I am not sure it is courage," Owen said. "Sometimes it feels more like stubbornness." "Perhaps those are the same thing," Asha said with a small smile. Their eyes met across the firelight, and Owen felt that familiar pull, the awareness that had been building between them for weeks. He wondered if she felt it too, if she lay awake at night in the loft, thinking about him the way he thought about her. The idea seemed impossible, and yet here they were, an orc and a human living under the same roof, defying every social convention and expectation. "Asha," he said, then stopped, unsure how to continue. "Yes," she prompted gently. "I am glad you stayed," he said finally, the words inadequate but honest. "These past weeks have been the happiest I have had in a long time." Her expression softened. "I am glad too," she said. "More glad than I know how to express. You saved my life, Owen, more than once, and you have given me something I thought I lost forever." "What is that?" Owen asked. "Hope," Asha said simply. "Hope that maybe there is a future beyond just surviving. That maybe someday, humans and orcs can see each other as more than enemies." Owen wanted to tell her that she was that future for him, that when he looked at her, he saw not an orc but simply Asha, brilliant and strong and beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with her green skin or her tusks. But the words stuck in his throat, too big and dangerous to speak aloud. Instead, he reached across the small space between them and took her hand. Her fingers were calloused and strong, and they closed around his with a gentle pressure that made his heart race. They sat like that until the fire burned low, not speaking, just being together. And when they finally went to bed, Owen to his newly built cot downstairs and Asha to the loft, he lay awake replaying the warmth of her hand in his and wondering what it meant. The first snow came in early November, dusting the fields with white and making the world go quiet. Owen and Asha worked to prepare the farm for winter, insulating the barn and stocking up on supplies. They made another trip to town, and this time, Owen noticed that a few people nodded to Asha cautiously, acknowledging her presence if not quite accepting it. It was progress, small but real. Not everyone was warming to the situation, though. Tom Driscoll continued to watch them with cold eyes whenever they came to town, and his friends made no secret of their disapproval. Twice, Owen found his fences broken in the night, and once, someone left a dead crow nailed to his door with a note that read, "Monster Lover." Owen took the crow down and burned the note without mentioning it to Asha, but he knew she had seen it because she became quieter and more watchful after that. "You could still send me away," she said one morning as they fed the chickens. "It is not too late to say I ran off in the night." "No one would blame you. Stop it," Owen said firmly. "I am not sending you away. We have had this conversation." "But it is getting worse," Asha said. "The vandalism, the threats. What if they do something more serious? Then we will deal with it," Owen said. "Together." She looked at him with such intensity that Owen felt pinned in place. "Why are you so determined to keep me here? And do not say it is because we are friends. There is more to it than that. I can see it in the way you look at me." Owen's heart hammered. This was the conversation they had been avoiding, the truth that simmered beneath every interaction. He could lie, deflect, pretend he did not know what she meant, but he was tired of hiding. "You are right," he said quietly. "There is more to it. Somewhere along the way, you stopped being just a person I was helping and became someone I care about deeply. Someone I think about constantly. Someone who makes me laugh and challenges me and makes this house feel like a home instead of just a place I live." Asha's breath caught. "Owen, I am an orc. You are human. Even if we both feel something, there is no future in it. You would be cast out by your community and I would be seen as a traitor by mine. It is impossible." "Maybe," Owen said, "but that does not change how I feel, and I think you feel the same way." For a long moment, Asha said nothing. Then she set down the basket of chicken feed and turned to face him fully. "I do," she whispered. "I tried not to. I told myself it was gratitude or just loneliness or anything else that made sense. But it is more than that. When I am with you, I feel safe. I feel seen. You look at me and you do not see a monster or an enemy. You see me, Asha, and I have never had that before, not even among my own people." Owen closed the distance between them, his heart in his throat. "Then why should we deny it? Why should we let fear and prejudice dictate what we feel? Because people could die," Asha said, her voice breaking. "You could die defending me, and I could not live with that." "I am already defending you," Owen pointed out, "and I would do it whether we acknowledge these feelings or not. At least if we are honest about it, we can face whatever comes together." Asha looked at him with eyes that shimmered with unshed tears. "You make it sound so simple." "It is not simple at all," Owen said. "It is probably the most complicated thing either of us will ever do. But it is also the most honest." She reached up slowly, giving him time to pull away, and cupped his face with one hand. Her skin was warm despite the cold air, and her touch was gentle. Owen leaned into it, his own hand coming up to cover hers. "If we do this," Asha said, "there is no going back. People will know, they will judge us." "Let them," Owen said. "I have been judged before. I survived. And then she kissed him, soft and tentative at first, as if afraid he might change his mind. Owen kissed her back, pouring into it all the feelings he had been holding back for weeks. Her tusks pressed against his face, unfamiliar but not unpleasant, and her arms came around him with a strength that made him feel both protected and precious. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Asha rested her forehead against his, and Owen could feel her smile. "This is madness," she said. "Absolutely," Owen agreed, "but I do not want to stop. Neither do I." They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the cold morning air, while the chickens clucked around their feet and the world went on, oblivious to the small revolution happening in Owen Nichols' farmyard. The weeks that followed were among the happiest and most terrifying of Owen's life. He and Asha did not try to hide their relationship, but they did not flaunt it either. They went about their work, preparing the farm for deep winter, and in the evenings they sat together by the fire, talking or reading or simply existing in each other's presence. At night, Asha moved from the loft to Owen's bed, and they learned each other with a tenderness that felt sacred. The town's reaction was mixed. Some people seemed to accept that Owen and Asha were together, or at least they stopped commenting on it openly. Others were horrified, and Owen started hearing rumors that there were calls for him to be driven out or arrested for consorting with the enemy. Tom Driscoll was the loudest voice against them, arguing in the tavern and at town meetings that Owen's behavior was a threat to public safety. It came to a head in mid-December. Owen and Asha had gone to town for supplies when they found a crowd gathered in the square. Tom stood in the center, addressing the assembled townspeople with the fervor of a preacher. "We have tolerated this obscenity long enough," Tom was saying. "Owen Nichols has brought an orc into our midst, and now he flaunts his unnatural relationship with it as if there is nothing wrong. This is an insult to every human who has died fighting orc aggression, and it cannot stand." Owen felt Asha tense beside him, but he put a hand on her arm. "Let me handle this," he said quietly. He stepped forward and the crowd parted for him. Tom's eyes narrowed when he saw Owen, but he did not back down. "Tom," Owen said calmly, "if you have a problem with me, say it to my face instead of whipping up a mob." "This is not about you," Tom said. "This is about protecting this town from threats, and you have brought one right to our doorstep." "Asha is not a threat," Owen said, raising his voice so the crowd could hear. "She has been living peacefully on my farm for months now. She has not harmed anyone. She has not stolen anything. She works hard and she asks for nothing but the chance to live." "She is an orc," someone in the crowd shouted. "They are all dangerous, are they?" Owen challenged. "Or is that just what we tell ourselves to justify the killing? I fought in the war, same as many of you. I killed orcs and I watched them kill humans. But I have spent the last few months living with Asha, and you know what I have learned. She is no different from us. She feels pain, joy, fear, love. She mourns her lost family and dreams of a better future. The only difference between her and you is the color of her skin and the shape of her teeth. You have been bewitched," Tom spat, "or you are a traitor. Either way, you have no place in this community." "Then I will leave," Owen said, and he heard Asha gasp behind him. "If that is what it takes to keep her safe, I will sell my farm and we will go somewhere else. But I will not let you hurt her, and I will not pretend that what I feel for her is wrong just because you cannot see past your own hatred." The crowd was silent now, shocked by his declaration. Tom looked stunned, as if he had expected Owen to back down. "You would give up everything for that creature?" Tom asked incredulously. "She has a name," Owen said. "And yes, I would, because she is worth more than all of your approval combined." He turned to Asha, who stood frozen, her eyes wide. "Come on," he said gently. "Let us get our supplies and go home." They walked through the silent crowd, and Owen could feel the weight of judgment pressing down on them from all sides. But he kept his head high, and Asha did the same, and they did not stop until they reached the general store. The shopkeeper, an older woman named Mrs. Holloway, looked at them with an unreadable expression. "I heard what you said out there," she said. "I meant every word," Owen replied. Mrs. Holloway was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I believe you did. And for what it is worth, I think you are a braver man than most. My husband died in the war, killed by orcs. I hated them for years. But watching you and Asha these past months, seeing how hard you both work and how you look at each other, it has made me think. Maybe we have been holding on to hate for too long." She packed their supplies carefully and did not charge them for 2 of the items, waving off Owen's protest. "Consider it a gift," she said, "and good luck. You are going to need it." They rode home in silence, the weight of what had happened settling over them. When they reached the farm, Asha finally spoke. "You should not have said that," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You should not be willing to give up your home for me." "Too late," Owen said. "I already decided." "Owen, I cannot let you do this," Asha said. "Your whole life is here, your family's legacy. I am not worth that." Owen pulled the horse to a stop and turned to face her. "Yes, you are," he said firmly. "You are worth that and more. I meant what I said, Asha. I love you. And I would rather start over somewhere new with you than spend the rest of my life here without you." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she did not try to stop them. "I love you too," she whispered, "but I am so afraid that loving me will destroy you." "Then we will be destroyed together," Owen said. "And we will rebuild, but I am not letting you go." She kissed him then, desperate and fierce, and Owen held her like she was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. That night, as they lay together in the dark, Asha spoke quietly. "What if we did not have to leave?" "What do you mean?" Owen asked. "What if there was a way to make people see that we are not a threat, to show them that humans and orcs can coexist?" "I am open to suggestions," Owen said. "But I do not think giving speeches in the town square is going to change Tom's mind." "No," Asha agreed. "But maybe we do not need to change everyone's mind. Maybe we just need to show a few people and let them spread the word. Mrs. Holloway is already on our side. If we could find others like her, people who are willing to see past the prejudice, we could start to shift public opinion." Owen thought about it. "It would take time," he said. "And we would have to be patient, keep proving that you are not dangerous." "I am willing to try," Asha said. "If you are." "Always," Owen said, and kissed her forehead. The opportunity came sooner than they expected, in the form of a crisis that winter. A severe storm rolled through in late December, dumping 3 feet of snow and bringing howling winds that tore roofs off buildings. Owen and Asha weathered it safely in their sturdy farmhouse, but the day after the storm, they heard the sound of someone pounding on their door. Owen opened it to find young Billy Peterson, the 10-year-old son of a neighboring farmer, standing on the porch. The boy was half frozen, his lips blue and his clothes soaked through. "Please," Billy gasped. "My pa is hurt. A tree fell on our barn and he is trapped. Ma sent me to get help." Owen did not hesitate. He pulled Billy inside, wrapping him in a blanket, then looked at Asha. "Can you stay with him?" "I need to go help." "No," Asha said firmly. "You will need me. I am stronger than you, and if there is debris to move, you will not be able to do it alone with your leg." Owen wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. "Fine. Billy, you stay here where it is warm. We will be back as soon as we can." They saddled the horse quickly and rode through the deep snow to the Peterson farm. The scene was worse than Owen had expected. The barn had partially collapsed, and he could see Mr. Peterson trapped beneath a massive beam, his leg bent at an unnatural angle. Mrs. Peterson was trying frantically to lift the beam, but it was far too heavy. "Help is here," Owen called out as they dismounted. Mrs. Peterson looked up, and her expression went from relief to shock when she saw Asha. "What is that thing doing here?" "She is here to help," Owen said firmly. "Now let us get your husband free before he loses that leg." They did not have time for argument. Asha moved to the beam and positioned herself, then lifted with a grunt of effort. The beam rose slowly, and Owen scrambled to pull Mr. Peterson out from under it. As soon as he was clear, Asha lowered the beam carefully and stepped back. Mr. Peterson was conscious but in bad shape. His leg was broken, possibly in multiple places, and he needed a doctor. Owen splinted the leg as best he could with materials from the barn while Asha helped Mrs. Peterson calm down. "Thank you," Mr. Peterson gasped, looking at Asha. "You saved my life." "Owen did most of the work," Asha said quietly. "I could not have lifted that beam," Owen said. "We both saved you." Mrs. Peterson looked between them, something shifting in her expression. "I am sorry," she said to Asha, "for what I said before. I was scared and not thinking clearly." "It is all right," Asha said. "I understand." They got Mr. Peterson loaded onto the horse and rode carefully back to Owen's farm where Billy was waiting. From there, Owen rode into town to fetch Dr. Hartley, leaving Asha to keep watch over the injured man and his family. When Owen returned with the doctor, he found Asha sitting with Mrs. Peterson and Billy, all of them drinking hot tea. The atmosphere was almost comfortable, and Owen felt a flicker of hope. Dr. Hartley set Mr. Peterson's leg and declared that he would recover, though it would take time. As they prepared to take the Peterson family home, Mrs. Peterson pulled Owen aside. "I misjudged your Asha," she said quietly. "She has been nothing but kind to us, and she saved my husband's life. I will not forget that, and I will make sure others know it too." "Thank you," Owen said, genuinely moved. Word of the rescue spread quickly. Mrs. Peterson was as good as her word, telling everyone who would listen about how Asha had helped save her husband. Mrs. Holloway added her voice to the chorus, and slowly, imperceptibly at first, the town's attitude began to shift. Not everyone came around. Tom Driscoll remained implacably opposed, and there were others who shared his view. But enough people started to see Asha as a person rather than a monster that the calls for her removal quieted. By the time spring arrived, Owen and Asha could go to town without facing open hostility, though they still drew stares. It was not perfect, and Owen knew it might never be. But it was progress, and that was enough. One warm evening in late April, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set, Asha leaned her head on Owen's shoulder. "I never thought I would have this," she said quietly. "A home, someone who loves me, a community that at least tolerates my presence." "You deserve all of it and more," Owen said. "So do you," Asha replied. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Owen, I have been thinking." "About what?" "About the future. About what happens next." Owen felt his heart start to race. "And what did you conclude?" Asha sat up and turned to face him, her amber eyes serious. "I want to stay here with you, not just for now but permanently. I want to build a life together if you will have me." Owen felt like his chest might burst. "Asha, are you asking me to marry you?" She smiled, nervous and hopeful. "In orc culture, we do not have marriages exactly, but we have bonding ceremonies where two people pledge their lives to each other. I want that with you. I want everyone to know that we belong together." Owen took her hands in his throat tight with emotion. "I want that too. More than anything." "Even knowing it will bring more judgment?" Asha asked. "Even knowing some people will never accept us?" "Even then," Owen said firmly. "Let them judge. I chose you, Asha, and I will keep choosing you every day for the rest of my life." She kissed him then, slow and deep, and when they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. They held the bonding ceremony a month later in a small clearing in the forest behind Owen's farm. Mrs. Holloway came, and the Peterson family, and a handful of other townspeople who had come to respect, or at least accept Asha. Dr. Hartley officiated, using a combination of human and orc traditions that Asha taught him. There was no formal marriage license, no legal recognition of their union. But as they stood together, hands clasped, and spoke their vows under the open sky, Owen felt the truth of it settle into his bones. They were bound now, in every way that mattered. Tom Driscoll did not come to the ceremony, of course. But he did not try to stop it either, and Owen counted that as a small victory. In the months and years that followed, Owen and Asha's farm became something of a symbol. Other orcs, hearing of a place where they might be safe, began to make their way to the area. Owen and Asha helped where they could, offering food and shelter and sometimes work. Gradually, a small community formed, a handful of orc families living peacefully alongside human neighbors. It was not easy. There were setbacks and conflicts, moments when it seemed like the fragile peace might shatter. But each time, Owen and Asha stood together, modeling what was possible when fear gave way to compassion. 5 years after that first night when Owen found Asha in his garden, they welcomed a daughter into the world. She had her mother's green skin and her father's brown eyes, and she was the most beautiful thing Owen had ever seen. They named her Alina, and she grew up running through the fields of the farm, beloved by both humans and orcs. Owen would sometimes think back to that moment when he had raised his rifle, ready to shoot, and then lowered it to ask a simple question. "Are you hungry?" Such a small decision, and yet it had changed everything. It had brought him love, family, purpose, and a future he never could have imagined. Tom Driscoll eventually moved away, unable to stomach the changes in the community. Most people did not miss him. The new generation growing up in the area saw orc children and human children playing together and did not find it strange. They learned to see people rather than monsters, and the old prejudices began to fade. It was not a perfect world. There were still places where orcs were hunted, still humans who would never accept them. But in their small corner of the frontier, Owen and Asha had created something rare and precious. A home where love mattered more than species, where kindness was stronger than hate. On their 10th anniversary, as they sat on the porch watching Alina chase fireflies in the twilight, Asha took Owen's hand. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Choosing this life?" Owen looked at her, at the silver threads just beginning to show in her black hair, at the laugh lines around her eyes, at the strength and grace that had only deepened with time. He thought of his daughter's laughter, of the farm they had built together, of the community they had helped create. "Not for a single moment," he said. "You are the best decision I ever made." Asha smiled, that same smile that had captured his heart all those years ago. "And you are mine." They sat together as darkness fell, watching their daughter play, and Owen felt a peace he had never known in his soldier days. This was what he had been fighting for all along without knowing it. Not victory over enemies, but the chance to build something better. A world where a human farmer and an orc woman could fall in love, raise a family, and live in peace. It had started with a simple question, offered to a starving stranger in the night. "Are you hungry?" And it had led to everything. Alina came running up to the porch, breathless and laughing, holding out a jar full of fireflies. "Look, Papa, look, Mama, I caught them." "So you did," Owen said, pulling her onto his lap. "But remember what we talked about, we have to let them go," Alina said with a sigh. "Because they need to be free." "That is right," Asha said, smoothing their daughter's hair. All creatures deserve freedom. Alina opened the jar, and they watched the fireflies drift upward into the night sky, tiny points of light dancing in the darkness. Owen held his family close and knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The war between humans and orcs continued in distant lands, but here, in this small corner of the world, peace had taken root. It was fragile still, requiring constant tending, but it was real. And it had all begun with one man choosing compassion over fear, connection over isolation, love over hate. Owen Nichols had raised his rifle at an orc in his yard, then lowered it and asked if she was hungry. That single choice had rippled outward, changing not just his life but the lives of everyone around him. It had taught him that the smallest acts of kindness could have the largest consequences, that one person willing to see past prejudice could begin to heal old wounds. As the stars came out above them and Alina drifted off to sleep in his arms, Owen looked at Asha and saw his whole world reflected in her eyes. They had faced judgment, overcome obstacles, and built something beautiful from the ashes of war and hatred, and it had all been worth it. Every single moment, because in the end, love was always worth it.